Skyrim is easily one of the best video games of all time, but like any other game, like 99% of other games, Skyrim has its flaws. In this video, I'll discuss some of the imperfections I noticed, and hopefully if the big man is listening, we can try to avoid these in Elder Scrolls 6.
Bethesda, please hire me. Todd said Elder Scrolls 6 would probably be his last one. You need somebody to pick up the torch. Put me in, coach, put me in!
Sorry about that. I'm gonna focus on issues that they could have solved in 2011 during the release of this game. So you won't hear me talking about the combat or the graphics, since those areas were good for 2011. So without any further ado, let's dig into the few flaws of Skyrim. The first thing I'll talk about is the speech tree. There is no skill tree that feels as disappointing to me as this one, and I'll delve into why. The speech tree isn't necessarily useless, lockpicking, but it seems to be a lot more catered toward bartering than anything else. If you want to play as a smooth-talking character who can get out of difficult situations with your speech, then you're out of luck in Skyrim. Fudge Muppet goes into detail on this, and their video is amazing and you should check it out, but he rightly points out that some of the perks just come way too late, and as a result, you don't get as much utility from them as you should. For example, with the Intimidation perk, which you can unlock with 70 speech, your intimidation attempts are twice as successful. But by that point in the game, who can you not intimidate? I also feel like Skyrim should have had more speech checks in general, especially with harder speech checks, so you feel more incentivized to invest in the speech tree. The hardest speech check in Skyrim is convincing Feralda to let you into the College of Winterhold without taking the test. But the test is so easy to pass, and there's really no utility to this option. The hardest speech check in the game just saves you a 3-minute magic test that basically everyone can pass anyway. I feel like there are plenty of areas where they could have implemented speech options, and these could be with harder speech checks, thus encouraging people to care more about the speech tree. Imagine if you could talk some of the Daedra into making different choices, or the Blades into sparing Parthunax. And by the way, that whole quest is another issue in itself, but I digress. The point is, there should be more speech checks in Skyrim as it pertains to quests, and the rewards for passing speech checks could be shortening quests, or giving alternate quest lines, or finding out information that you never knew before. The speech tree's implementation is hindered by some of the perks coming way too late, but it's also hindered by there not being that many interesting speech checks that would make you care about the speech tree. The speech tree is certainly useful for haggling prices, but bartering isn't the only thing speech should be about. I also feel that there is a massively missed opportunity here, as speech is a big part when it comes to the Dragonborn's identity, as his whole special ability is being able to shout or use the voice. I really wish they incorporated or made another branch within the speech tree dedicated to shouts. If they added shouts to the speech tree, then the possibilities would be endless, and you would feel much more inclined to utilize the speech tree. Imagine if you could have significantly lower cooldowns on shouts, or if you could chain shouts together instead of being limited to one at a time. I'm just spitballing a few ideas here, but the directions for this really are endless. TLDR, there's not enough speech in Skyrim, especially when it pertains to interacting with other characters outside of just bartering. But for its lack of speech, Skyrim makes up for it by giving us an abundance of dragons. This brings us on to our second flaw, the dragons. There's too damn many of these bastards in the game. Now, I will concede before I dig into it that this is a very nitpicky and personal taste argument, so some of you are going to disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine and valid. I loved fighting dragons during the first few meetings we had with them in the game, but really quickly they became a chore. My explanation for this is that dragons went from a once-in-a-while, memorable event to just another horde that constantly bombards you throughout the game. Pair this with the fact that the fights with the dragons usually last longer than any other enemy, and it makes sense why they would get monotonous and boring. Even with Dragonrend, the fights can feel dull. I'm happy they have a decent variety of dragons in the game, and they are somewhat challenging compared to the other enemies in Skyrim, but I think too much of even a good thing can be bad. I really feel that they should have made dragons a much more rare occurrence in the game, and this would make the meetings with them much more memorable, and we would be less inclined to just get sick of them. But like I said before, this is completely personal taste, and so if you like dragons, then let me drag my balls all over your So if you like dragons, then the more the merrier, and you probably prefer there being a higher number of fights with them in Skyrim. Now let's move on to something we can all agree on. A bipartisan issue, something truly game-breaking. Tails. Specifically, why is there no option to toggle off tails when playing as an Argonian or as a Khajiit so that you don't have that pesky little thing ruining every cool set of armor you have? Most of the time it looks fine, but I remember my first playthrough was on an Argonian on the PlayStation 3, and I remember after getting the Nightingale armor, I was a bit disappointed that my tail was ruining it. It's not a huge deal, and a quick mod can fix it, but I just hope in the future they add some more customization to the races with tails. Okay, back to serious issues. Another area of Skyrim that I feel was heavily underutilized is the sea. There are some occasions where you can find cool treasure underwater, but for the most part, Skyrim's bodies of water present nothing substantial for the player to care about. Considering Skyrim borrows heavily from Norse mythology, I really wish they also took a page out of that culture when it comes to all of the legends of sea monsters. Imagine if Skyrim had giant sea serpents or a giant squid like the Kraken. That would present a new type of enemy that could be extremely high level and give you a challenge for later on in the game. It would also bring life to an otherwise barren environment. I think they could also add some more locations and treasures underwater, and this would make the potion of underwater breathing or the passive ability of Argonians actually useful. The game also seems to hint at some underwater life, like with the whale fossil in Sovngarde or the final chamber in Ustengrav, but nothing seems to be made out of these references to sea life. Going forward, I really hope they add some more life to the oceans, and I know they were planning of adding a giant octopus in Fallout 4 that would guard a vault, but unfortunately that got scrapped. Hopefully they can add some giant sea monsters in Elder Scrolls 6 though, and I think it would make complete sense within the fantasy setting of the world. The last thing I will bring up is immersion. I do think Skyrim is immersive, but I don't think it's nearly as immersive as it could be. I strongly believe that other Elder Scrolls games, and especially Fallout New Vegas, do the immersion aspect better. I feel like the world of Skyrim should be a lot more responsive to your choices as the player. One of the best examples of this is when you kill the Emperor in the Dark Brotherhood storyline. In this, world-changing event for the most part goes unnoticed. Skyrim is supposed to be in the midst of this massive civil war going on, but plenty of times it doesn't really feel like it. If you get some mods, you can for the most part solve this issue, but I'm trying to focus on the base game for this video. In a lot of areas, it feels like your choices don't really matter. Going back to the Civil War, the game gives you an option of either joining the racists or advocating for militarization paired with the cleansing of a religion. Some nice nuance and an interesting choice to make there. The main thing I want to point out though is that at the start of the game, whether you pick Hadvar or Ralof doesn't make any difference on your playthrough. You still get the same outcomes, and it doesn't even put you in any more of a favorable position with either faction. Also with the Stormcloaks, who are heavily racist, especially against elves, it doesn't matter if you join them as a dark elf or as a high elf. They won't remark at all about your race, even though they're trying to actively get your kind out of the province. It's a shame, because this is the biggest problem with Skyrim, in my opinion, and one of its main claims to fame is that it's supposed to be incredibly immersive. I know there are a decent amount of interactions that can trickle down from your choices, especially with the dialogues that the guards will say, but it still feels like Skyrim is missing some more nuances, like your character being acknowledged for specific choices that would really make the game have much more immersion. Now, I'm not saying that Skyrim has to be as elaborate and as intricate as Detroit Become Human or dedicated decision-making games, but the world should feel alive and responsive, and sometimes Skyrim falls flat. Key word there, sometimes. Like I mentioned before, I do think Skyrim is immersive, and for the most part, the world feels alive from all the books you can read to all of the random encounters that can take place in the wild. I just feel that Skyrim could have ramped it up a few levels when it comes to your choices and how they feed back into the game. Going forward, I really hope they vastly improve on this aspect in the next Elder Scrolls, and whether or not they get this right in the next game will, in all honesty, probably make or break Elder Scrolls 6. So there you have it, my picks for the flaws of Skyrim. Guys, don't think I hate Skyrim, because that's not true at all. I absolutely love this game. The reason why I made this video is because I was reminiscing on this game and there were some tweaks I wish they had made, and I decided to make a video to voice these concerns, and hopefully there can be some awareness around these issues going forward so these won't be a problem again. Please let me know if you agree with my picks in the comments below, and I know I didn't get around to every issue, I just chose what my biggest gripes are, so please let me know your own personal improvements for Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls 6 to make in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I love you all.